Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Left at Z channel. It has been a very long time since I made a video last. I'm sorry about that. Full disclosure, and because I think talking about mental health is really important, I was very depressed for a while, so that's kind of why I didn't make videos for a while. And then I got on antidepressants, which seemed to have helped, but then I was busy with school and work, so haven't made a video in a while. Sorry, that is why. We also have some other news. This is probably the last video I'm going to record in my basement here. So enjoy the terrible lighting and horrible background one last time, because I'm moving to college, and hopefully my little apartment room will be a little bit nicer for recording. We'll have some natural light and hopefully a nicer background a bit. But without further ado, today we are reacting to a video from Valuetainment called 10 Reasons I Love Capitalism. I, for one, do not like capitalism. In fact, you might say that I hate it. So let's just get straight into it and watch the video. And of course, we're just gonna start off by doing a little something like this.
You know, a lot of times people ask me a question, they say, "Pal, what's your favorite product in the world?" And the answer has always been the same. My favorite product in the world is people. I can't get enough of people. I want to know your birthday. I want to know how you met your girl. I don't want to know how we met your boyfriend. I want to know about your parents. Who are you closer to, mom or dad? How was it growing up? Who were you in high school? I want to know. I'm curious because I love people.
Okay, so this guy here, I forget his name. Let's see actually if it says his name. Oh, Patrick. Okay, Patrick. This guy starts off with a really long and drawn out little intro where he basically tells a story about a time when he was in India and there was a young kid asking for food. And he ended up getting the kid a McDonald's, pretty nice thing to do, I guess. And he then reflects on why the stranger is living in poverty while he is living in very decent conditions. All right, so let's see what else he has to say.
I asked myself, okay, what is the difference between this kid and me? Am I that special and smart? Am I that unique of a human being? Maybe he's got the same level of potential as me, maybe more. How come he's over there? Maybe because he grew up in slums. Maybe because he didn't have the same exact opportunities. What does this mean to you?
So at least this guy has some basic understanding that inequality plays a very significant role in success. We'll see how long that keeps up, though.
I'm in a system that's capitalism. I am in America. It's capitalism. It breeds entrepreneurs. He's not in that system. So what do we do with that person right there?
Wait, what? India is a mixed economy. It's based off of capitalism, even if it is socialist with some of its policies and some of its ideas. Also, India is a very poor country and has a lot of corruption, so there's not really a good comparison between the US, a very wealthy country, and India, which has been exploited by capitalists in the US for cheap labor and also just is very poor in general. And I don't think that's really something you can say between capitalism and socialism. I don't think that comparison's really there.
I want you to internalize what I'm about to talk about with you, because there's two solutions you have. One is come to America. The other one is making sure you take every single spirit of capitalism and spread it to everybody in your country.
Oh, no. Capitalism has only made things worse when you export it. We call that military and neo-colonialism and everything that's happening in Afghanistan right now. So do not do that. That is very bad and has led to many bad situations.
So today, I'm going to give you 10 different reasons why I love capitalism and why it can change your life.
So I have a big problem with people that love capitalism because it's the status quo in the world right now. We live in a capitalist world. I live in the imperial core of capitalism, if you will. But we still have a lot of problems. Climate change, and what I'm going to talk about in particular is prosperity is very unequal. I can drive 10, 20 minutes from my house and see homeless people and people begging for money and people who are starving. And that's even in middle-class areas, middle-class neighborhoods. You don't necessarily even have to go to the slums to see poverty and, just horrible living conditions. Back when I was working full-time, I had a really scary thought about how if I wasn't living with my parents right now, there's absolutely no way I could live in the same area on my own with the salary that I was getting. And that's the reality for a lot of people. A lot of people have to drive long distances to live in an area that they can afford and get a salary that meets that requirements. And not to mention as well that in the US, back when the pandemic happened, we had a national hunger crisis that we have not seen in a very long time. So this is basically what I'm going to have a problem with most of his points, is that we're not actually seeing capitalism doing this lifting out of poverty and spreading prosperity as he wants to believe.
Well, first of all, before I get into telling you all these great things about capitalism, I want you to know that it is very naive to think that any system is perfect. I think a lot of times when people want to bash something, they're expecting 100% of people to do it right.
Of course, no one's going to think any system is perfect, but the problem is capitalism is so far from perfect, unless you are wealthy, that we need to do some changes about it. And actually, I really hate this idea that we don't need to change anything. We need to keep changing and improving and learning why our system doesn't work for everyone and figuring out ways that we can improve it for everyone. And I just think that it's very short-sighted to think that capitalism is the solution when it is clearly the problem.
Top 10 reasons why capitalism sucks. People are unhappy, competition, destruction, adverse selection, externalities, monopolies, free riding, pointless cause, underconsumption, inhumanity, inequality, which...
He kind of just brushed over like a lot of really bad stuff right there. I'm just kind of putting that out there.
By the way, monopolies don't exist without the help of government. The only way a monopoly can happen is with the help of a government.
What? Capitalism literally breeds monopolies, dude. Think about it this way. Company A wants to buy Company B. Well, Company A has more money, so they buy them out. And you can kind of just extrapolate that over and over and over again. You don't need the help of a government to make a monopoly. It's just that sometimes one company is bigger than the other and has the capital to be able to buy out any sort of competitors and creates a monopoly that no one can actually compete with. In fact, government is made to break up monopolies. They don't always do this, and they should probably do it more, but they put in the regulation that actually stops monopolies from forming and has the power to actually break up monopolies. I would also like an explanation for how governments cause monopolies, like what sort of policies create monopolies.
This is where you see crony capitalism taking place.
Also, crony capitalism is just capitalism, all right? That's capitalism, baby. You're always going to have people at the top that want to exploit the system under capitalism because the motive is profit, not the well-being of people.
I'm simply talking about a system, on what a system does. So here's what I want you to be thinking about. Let's talk about some of the capitalists that they don't care about, the environment. They don't care about what the world looks like. We're specifically talking about environment on point number one. Say they don't care. It's like, listen, I just want to make money, man. Forget about it. I don't care if the solar is going to be dirty. I don't care if the sky's got all this smog because our cars barely pass a smog test. I don't care about that. You know what? That's perfect. That's perfect because it opens up the opportunity for a young guy that's watching this saying, oh my gosh, you know what? What if we created cars that were driven by batteries and I could put chargers all over the country, all over the world, and you just would go charge your battery for like 2 hours, and you go charge your battery for 20 minutes, and you go for another 20 minutes. What if I could do that? And that guy's name is Elon Musk. And then he becomes a hero, and he creates Tesla.
Okay, this is kind of a weird example, actually, because he points out that the existing capitalists already didn't want to change, and that they were driven by profit, and so they didn't want to change, which, isn't that like a fundamental idea of capitalism? Sure, Elon Musk came along and didn't actually invent cars, but just bought the idea of Tesla and electric cars, which already were around for a long time. But even then, he's still motivated by profit, and profit solely, He's selling an idea, and people are buying that idea, and that generates profit, sure. But at the end of the day, if there is a decision that benefits profit in one way and the environment in another, he's going to go for profit. And we can actually see an example of this. Tesla actually isn't amazing for the environment. It's better than fossil fuel cars for sure, but actually mining the lithium is still really bad for the environment. And so most people are agreeing that you shouldn't give up old cars just to buy an electric one. You know, if it makes sense, yeah, that's great. But actually just using what we have for the time being is better for the environment. That is not to say that we should not invest in electric vehicles, or what I would like to invest in more is public transit, but, you know, just something to keep in mind, I guess.
And people who own Teslas, they swear by Teslas. People who own Teslas. I've never owned a Tesla before. Every friend that I have who owns a Tesla, it's like they're part of a cult because they feel good that they're making the world a cleaner place.
Oh gosh, we've got a Tesla fanboy.
A capitalist that didn't care about the environment gave birth to Elon Musk.
A capitalist who doesn't care about people.
Let me give you a different perspective here. Environment. I want you to watch this commercial. I want you to guess which company's commercial this is.
We're really spreading new messages about what sustainability looks like, not just for today, but even 20 years from now.
For those of you that had never seen this commercial before, in your wildest dreams, did you think that was going to be a Coca-Cola commercial? Be honest. Be honest. Coca-Cola's gotten a lot of heat. Coca, right? A lot of heat over the years. In Iran, in the world, everywhere. A lot of heat.
Heat talks for a long time. You're going to see that as a theme throughout this video. I'm going to move on to the next point, but I did just want to mention how Coca-Cola got negative press recently, but they started caring about water, so it's okay. The issues you brought up were not about water. They're still ignoring those issues.
Number two, here's the next great thing about capitalism. Your vote actually matters.
He starts off with this next point talking about voting for elected officials and the election system in the US. And yeah, the election system is not great. He talks about how it doesn't feel like your vote really means anything, and we definitely need to do some things to change that. But to compare that voting system with capitalism is really insulting, actually, because under our system, at least, under our democratic system, at least, the hopeful idea is that everyone gets one vote, one person, one vote. The problem with under capitalism, the voting for different businesses, is the people with more money, they get a lot more votes. It's $1 one vote. So Elon Musk gets 80 fucking billion votes, whereas I get 20 or whatever, you know. It's really unequal. Gross, I just spat everywhere. So yeah, I guess your votes count more maybe, but they don't unless you're rich. So this is a non-point.
There is no place to go complain about a government official. Like, there's not a Yelp for government officials. There's not a Yelp for presidents. There's not a Yelp for DMVs. No DMV cares if you want to go out there and say bad things about them.
Also, you can write to your government officials. That's like the whole point. In fact, actually, there's a great website that is called Contact My Politician that I've used recently that is great. You just put in your zip code. It lets you know what your representatives are, and you can select who you want to write to and write your little message to them. And it gets to them, and they usually have an automated response. But, you know, when politicians get lots and lots of messages about the same topic, they tend to, you know, focus on that and take that to heart a bit because they are accountable to our re-election. So democracy is actually pretty cool. And, you know, we're not doing the best that we can right now. And there's certainly weaknesses to democracy as well. But to compare it to capitalism is really not accurate.
Businesses, complete different story. People were unhappy with Uber. You know what happens? The following month, all the people that were using Uber, everybody went to who? Lyft, because that's how we vote. You're not happy with Starbucks, Coffee Bean. I am not happy with McDonald's, Burger King. I am not happy with a gym, Bally's. Used to be all over the place, gone. LA Fitness, 24-hour fitness.
So he's kind of talking about what we actually call the illusion of choice. The idea that we have choices in the marketplace, but in reality, we don't really, because most of the products are pretty much the exact same. You know, if you have a problem with one business, you go to the other, they still probably have ways that they're producing their stuff unethically. There's no ethical consumption under capitalism. even if you don't buy that phrase, you can at least hopefully agree that it is very, very hard to ethically consume under capitalism. You can actually see this right now. The screen that you're watching this video on was probably made in a sweatshop with really horrible conditions, and the fast food place that you went to instead of McDonald's because they pay their workers poorly or something like that, or because eating meat contributes to climate change in some ways, that meat still contributes to climate change, and those workers are still being paid very poorly. So his next point is about innovation, and he basically makes the no capitalism, no iPhone argument, which is hilariously bad. But he then asks if people love their job. He goes off on some sort of tangent about farmers, something about how no one actually wants to be a farmer, but he kind of fails to mention that we need farmers. He mentioned that only 2% of Americans are farmers today, and that's a good thing. When actually that just means that we export all of our farming overseas and waste more time, energy, and resources shipping the agriculture back and forth so that we can eat. Like, sure, maybe no one wants to be a farmer. It's very difficult work. I'm a city boy, I haven't been on a farm. I think I went on a farm once and I thought that the sheep were cool. But I could never work on a farm. It's hard work. But that doesn't change that we need farms. Like, what are you gonna eat? Money? That doesn't work, dude. That doesn't work. You might like capitalism a lot, but dollar bill is probably like, what, 1 calorie? You need some more calories than that, dude. You're looking a little skinny. Actually, this guy looks like he works out, so I'm not gonna mention any more about his body. Also, how is this related to innovation?
And you don't have to be outside 12 hours a day working hard because of a capitalist figuring out a way to add advancement and innovation that give you the opportunity to do what you do today rather than being a farmer. Number 4.
He just moved on. He didn't talk about, he basically said, it's a good thing that we're not farmers anymore, and that it's innovation. We still need farmers, dude. He doesn't even make a real point here. Maybe it's because actually the government has sponsored most of the technological innovation in the past few years. So this guy doesn't really make any sense. He never really makes any actual points here. I almost got the feeling that he researched this video, realized capitalism kind of shitty, and he just made the video anyway. He talks about the draft for some reason, saying something like the spirit of choice made people stop drafting people. We still have the draft. Just because people haven't signed up for it in a long time, or we haven't been conscripted in a long time, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist anymore. Also, back when we last had the draft in the Vietnam War, why did we have the Vietnam War again? Was it because we didn't want another country to do what they wanted to do and become socialist? Because capitalism doesn't like it when other countries become socialist? Because if other countries become socialist, well, we might see that and be like, wow, what are they doing over there? That actually looks kind of good. So, capitalism kind of caused the Vietnam War, and that was the last time we drafted, so this guy doesn't make any sense at all. Oh god, there's 15 minutes left in this video. I'm gonna have to speed run this. Okay, he says Jeff Bezos is distributing wealth through jobs, I guess, but that doesn't really make much sense because Jeff Bezos has literally so much money that it would take centuries to work at Amazon to make the same amount of money that he has. He also has that wealth while Americans are still starving. He then goes on some sort of rant about improving yourself, but then accidentally brings up how corporations pay billions of dollars in advertising to products that are unhealthy for you. Yeah, because they're interested in profit, not you being healthy. He then talks about how important workers are to capitalists, which, yes, we are very important. But the problem is, if capitalism didn't have the government, making sure that there's minimum wages and standards for working conditions, then our working conditions and pay would be even worse than they are now. Then he falls into my trap card and claims that capitalism gives better quality of life than socialist countries, even though in this video here, I show statistics how if you actually control for how much wealth a country has, socialist countries actually do a lot better. And then he also credits capitalism for medical innovation, when in reality, medical advancement has been largely publicly funded. Okay, and then he starts talking about happiness for what feels like forever, I swear. He talks about how happiness is different for different types of people. Well, duh. There's always going to be different types of happinesses and different ways that people can achieve satisfaction in their life. And he basically says that there are very few types of happiness available under communism, which, by the way, he has a very poor understanding of the differences between socialism and communism. But anyway, he basically says that people like Elon Musk wouldn't be happy under communism, which I kind of disagree with. I actually think that someone like Elon could very much find a job that he was very satisfied in. You know, as long as you're willing to put in the time for the education, most people can get to the job that they want under socialism, whereas under capitalism, you have a limit with your starting point, you know? If your family or if you don't have the money, you might not really be able to go to school to get the job that you want. And you might be stuck in some pretty shitty jobs. So capitalism might allow for a very specific type of happiness for some people, but for most of us, it actually limits our happiness in what we're able to do. And all of a sudden, we're finally at his final point. I would have left more of his speaking in this, but he just drones on and on. He just goes on rambling and never really lands on a conclusion, which is a little bit irritating to watch. But anyway, his last reason to love capitalism is capitalism forgives. Let's hear him out.
Number 10, I want you to think about that relative that you have that judges you all the time. Every time you do something, they judge you. You know what's one of the great things about capitalism? It forgives you. It's very forgiving. And by the way, it's got a memory, like very quickly, capitalism gets over your old mistakes. What do I mean by this? See, you see a lot of people at the top that they make it, but you only see their final product. You don't see what mistakes they made. If I had to make my list is a very, very long list. Matter of fact, I even made a video about it called 12 Mistakes I Made as an Entrepreneur. What's the point here? You screwed up. You built a business, didn't work out. You made a bad decision financially. You lost everything. You can go work another job, save your money, 3 years later, start a business and come back up. That's what capitalism is forgiven. So you're watching this right now saying, oh my God, I just failed last year. I made a big mistake 2 years ago. Capitalism forgives you.
Now, for me, the last thing I would say about capitalism is that is forgiving. Under capitalism, you lose your job and you fucking starve to death. That's the reality for some people, so I don't see how that's very forgiving. Also, another way that capitalism is very not forgiving is employment after being jailed. If you look at this one study here, sorry, it's always on this side, I forget. In this study, 65% of ex-convicts were employed once after 8 months after being released, and less than half were still employed. That doesn't really sound like forgiveness for me. That sounds pretty rough, whereas under socialism, you know, there's possibly ways that the government could mandate that people with criminal past can't be excluded from working. But, of course, he doesn't bring up studies like this at all. He doesn't really consider this at all. Actually, that's kind of it for the video. He goes on to sell on whatever he's selling, of course. But final thoughts for me. Really, I think this video was made from a very privileged place. And has a lot of unrealistic optimism about the current organization of the economy. He doesn't really have any data or research or sources to back up really any of his claims. It's all just anecdotes. He also just kind of forgets that poor people exist, which that's a little fucked up. He also didn't really make any new points. Most of them, you know, here on the left we've heard time and time before. And he just rambles a lot. He never actually even makes those points. So this was a bit painful to watch, but hopefully you enjoyed watching this video. And if you did, be sure to like the video. I kind of got ahead of myself there. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you like the content. And yeah, the next time you'll see me, I'll probably be moved out in a different place. And Give me suggestions on what sort of videos you want to see. I have a lot of things coming up with going back to school, and another thing that I will hopefully be able to tell you about soon. So yeah, thank you all for watching the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.